Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we've got some big news which you are absolutely going to want to hear about and factor into your planning. And that is the news that Kafka and Blade will most likely be the banners for 1.2. So if you are planning out your Stellar Jade income as a free-to-play player or looking to save up for these two characters or one of them, this is definitely the news you've been waiting for. Now, what is the exact news and what is the source? Well, MiHoYo over on their official channels have started to show off the two characters. This has also been over on the Chinese side of things, and this is exactly what they did with Silverwolf as well as Luocha. They showed them off first and foremost with a bit of a teaser, and then they were later confirmed to be the 1.1 banners, and it's all but certain now that those will be the two, which we will be getting 100% in 1.1. So the question is, should you save for them, as well as what on earth do these guys do? Now, if you guys have been up to date with what we did last time, we're going to be doing the same thing for Blade and Kafka. We're going to give you guys a bit more info on these characters, how they're going to fit into teams, and whether or not they are something you should consider for the long term of your account. Now, it's not just Kafka and Blade though, they are coming alongside a new 4-star, and his name is Luca. Now, we don't know anything about him publicly. All we know is he is physical, he is a 4-star, and he is Nihility. He is essentially the Yukong, which seems to be coming in 1.2. So he's kind of like another character there. So the Nihility class is one which we're going to explore quite a lot, I imagine, next patch. But it's fair to say that they are more of a damage, hybrid, defense, buffing kind of class, which kind of specializes in being all-rounders. So we have no idea what he does, but he is physical. And if he has anything to do with damage over time, like bleeds or anything like that, I imagine he's going to be best friends with Kafka. So that makes a lot of sense to be pairing him with her. So let's dive into the units we do know a bit about, which is Blade and Kafka. Now, it goes without saying, even though MiHoYo used the exact same tactics on us for Luocha and Silverwolf, they're not guaranteed. They haven't straight up said they're coming in 1.1, so Blade and Kafka may still not be coming, but I'd be willing to go all in and say that they probably are. So I think that it's a pretty safe assumption that if you're trying to plan out what your future is going to be, you definitely want to take this information pretty seriously. So the question is going to be, how good is Blade and how good is Kafka, and should you save for them on your account compared to what we already have information on? Now, the obligatory disclaimer, if you're interested in specifically Blade or specifically Kafka for their aesthetic, their theme, their story, anything like that, you should absolutely just pull them. All power aside, ignore everything I'm about to say. You know, save those jades up, count the days down. You guys are going to have a blast with them. That's all that matters. But if you're interested in how they work mechanically, how their power level is, and how they're going to fit into your account, let's dive into whether or not you should save for Blade or Kafka. Alright, so the big question is going to be, how will Kafka and Blade fit into the meta overall? And the other thing we can do is base that on our current meta. Now, the two top units in our game right now are Sele and Jing, and most teams are running single DPS damage compositions, generally consisting of a healer, a support, one damage dealer, and a flex spot. And Jing and Sele fit nicely into those comps. But why do they fit so nicely? And are Blade and Kafka going to be able to follow suit? So Sele and Jing both have one thing in common. They have reasonable single target damage, or in case of Sele, exceptional single target damage. But they also have the capability to deal AoE damage and deal with trash monsters. That is a big deal in Memory of Chaos, as there are a lot of trash monsters which take up a lot of time. And both these characters have a way to deal with that. So you need a decent single target and reasonable AoE to be a sole DPS and be top tier. Now, that's absolutely going to be something that we're going to be looking at here. So the question is, do Blade and Kafka have that at their disposal? And if so, how strong will they be? Alright, so both Blade and Kafka, I'm happy to report, at least based on their CBT2 values, as well as some information that's been floated around, have those capabilities available to them. Both Blade and Kafka seem to be able to capable of dealing at least good single target damage while also dealing AoE. Blade, his kit, was all focused on AoE. He was destruction. He dealt damage based off his life, and the more damage he took, the more damage he dealt. Kafka was a pure AoE damaging unit. All her abilities were AoE. She was shock related. She was dealing big damage with dots, and she absolutely looks like she was capable of that too. So both of them look like they will be at least eligible to be the sole DPS of their respective teams without too much concern. Alright, with all that introduction done, let's dive into how powerful these guys actually might be and some of the teams they might be used in. If you guys are interested in either Blade or Kafka's full kit broken down and analyzed, I will link down below 2 videos which I did on their CBT2 kits, which do deep dives into the characters and how they functioned. But applying all our knowledge now, Kafka. How strong will she be? How strong could she be? Let's break it down. So Kafka is a lightning damage over time nihility unit, and she gets most of her damage from shock, but she has a unique selling point. So it goes without saying that she's going to be probably pretty strong in terms of single target and AoE damage. But her special gimmick is that she has the ability to trigger the damage over time of every other character which has applied dots to an enemy, which is incredibly powerful. She triggers that for herself, and she also triggers that for everyone else. Now, the thing which is particularly powerful about Kafka is that this effect is actually already in the game. We've seen it. It's in the simulated universe in the Nihility path. And the way it currently works is that I believe it actually works for break as well, meaning that Kafka not only has massive damage potential on herself, just by using her kit normally in a vacuum, she has massive potential with hyper carry supports like Tingyun because they will boost up her damage substantially, but she has also massive potential with characters like Sampo that have a ton of dots on their own and also boost up dots, but she also has massive potential in the future and just in general with any enemy that can be broken for any element which is powerful. Now, why is this important? Well, let's take a character like Sushan who breaks for physical and applies strong bleeds and has strong break effect. When Kafka is in a team with a character like Sushan who applies those bleeds, in theory, Kafka can trigger those bleeds, which are percentage life based, and in some cases amplify those bleeds with her kit. This is incredibly strong. Now, from the numbers we've seen in the past, albeit they'll probably change, almost certainly, Kafka has been tuned pretty crazily, and overall she is so strong because she seems to be able to do enough damage just by herself, just with the way the kit looks to be pitched from the devs, that this isn't even a factor in her being competitive. Like, she always does enough damage just from her base kit, and then this is kind of like the gravy train on top. So if I had to pick a character out of the ones which have currently been released in terms of event banner 5 stars, those being Sele, Jing, as well as Kafka coming up potentially, I would definitely say that Kafka is the most unique, and she also has the most power to be completely broken, and that is primarily because she interacts with one of the game's core mechanics, that being break, and that is definitely not anything which is going away or getting any weaker anytime soon. We've already seen characters whose entire kit is around break, we've also seen characters whose entire kit is around dot, and she leverages the both of them, meaning that she definitely can be incredibly powerful. If you guys are curious about what team I would say I would want to try first with Kafka, it would be Kafka with Tingyun, due to the fact that Tingyun accelerates Kafka's overall rotation with her ultimate, is also lightning, and also applies extra lightning on hit to Kafka, and Kafka in her kit actually has, in the past at least, had a follow-up attack which would actually be able to trigger Tingyun. So overall, I believe this would be a pretty strong combination, and they are also double lightning, so Tingyun can run a special light cone which boosts up lightning damage even more. You can also run Kafka with Sampo, as discussed earlier. Sampo has strong dots by himself, then also applies a big ultimate which increases damage over time as well on top of that, so she's kind of double dipping off of Sampo as well, and he also applies break, so he's got his own 5 stacks of wind shear, he has wind shear break, and then Kafka can trigger all of that, and he also amplifies all that damage as well, so this definitely could be a suitable combo as well. Finally, the combo I would investigate with Kafka would be that of Serval. In the past, we've seen Kafka's kit move all over the place. We've seen her kit maybe have a longer shock and a shorter shock, but way more strong, and Serval is also another damage dealing character, but a special character because she can apply shock herself, but she can also perpetuate shocks infinitely with her ultimate, and Kafka, if her shock ends up being shorter, Serval can perpetuate that infinitely, but also Serval can perpetuate broken shock on the enemy infinitely as well, meaning Kafka can always trigger the broken shock with her special kit, so this is definitely going to be, in my opinion, a pretty strong combo as well. So those are the 3 characters I would think about pairing with Kafka. character. And then of course you can slap on a healer and a tank, or you can go ahead and add in even more damaging supports or combine two of the characters we just saw. Overall, will Kafka be strong? I would be shocked, pun intended, if she wasn't, honestly. She would probably be my pick of unit, which would probably, out of all the event banner characters we've seen their kits for so far, that I would say probably has the biggest potential to be broken long term if they don't treat her too harshly on the way they tune her. Alright, next up is Blade. What was his potential? How strong could he be? Well, he's a character which is a bit hard to pitch because the devs haven't really shown us any of the intention behind him for a very long time. We were shown him once with one set of abilities and one set of values, and that's it. And that was in closed beta 2, which is essentially an eternity ago. Now, fortunately for us, we have got a pretty good idea of how his kit works, so we're going to go over that, but just know that a lot of the way that he might work is probably going to be changed. But he had a pretty slick rotation back in closed beta 2. He was very, very smooth to play, and he was actually the only SS tier character in closed beta 2 because he was just so damn strong. There was a lot of footage of him literally being a sole unit against the entire memory of Chaos. Granted, back then tuning was a little bit different, but he was a character which scaled based on how much damage he took, which is a very unique mechanic and very cool. He has the ability to deal damage to himself, but also he did scale with how much damage he took from enemies. Not just how much damage, how much raw damage he took, but also how many hits he took. He had a talent which triggered every time his life was modified 5 times. Notice I said modified. So he can modify his life himself with his abilities, so like his ultimate, his skill, but he can also modify his life by taking damage. So whenever he lost any percentage of his life, like 1%, half a percent, any percent, like through cleave damage, through taking direct damage, he would gain a stack of his talent and start to gain damage and deal damage. And that talent was incredibly powerful. The catch with the talent was that it would always heal him when it triggered as well. So he was a unit who was always wanting to be hit as much as possible and dealing as much damage to his life total as possible at all times. Now, because he always wanted to be hit and he triggered his talent the majority of his kit from being hit and having his life total modified, he didn't want to be ever paired with shielders. That was a big no-no, because when you're hit and your shield is attacked, your life total is not moving when you're getting hit. Now that could obviously be changed, absolutely, but that is not the way that Blade worked in CBT2. He did not want to be paired with shielders. So Japad, March, 5-man character, these guys are out. He does not want to be played with them, that is for sure. He wants to be played with people who are just going to be able to heal him raw dog style and keep his life total up. Now Blade was a special character as well. He was like a character similar in Genshin Impact like Hu Tao. He was a character who wanted to get as much life as possible. Not only because he was going to be getting a hit a ton and he wanted to be hit a ton, but also because all of his abilities scaled off of the percentage of his life. He had like percentage life scaling. But the most important one to know is his ultimate. His ultimate was a special skill which consumed his life, up to 50% of it. And that was incredibly powerful. So if he had 10,000 life and he consumed half of that, well, that would be 5,000 damage. As mentioned earlier, his talent dealt damage based on how much damage he was dealt himself. And you could deal that 5,000 damage or 50% of your life every single ultimate, and that damage would be stored, and then you could smash it all around the place. So the special gimmick with Blade was having a massive life total to scale all of his abilities, but also be constantly topped up so you could sacrifice your life every time you had your ultimate available as well. Now I mentioned that it dealt 50% of his life. Now if you had 100% of your life, well, you would be consuming 50% of Blade's life and dealing that damage with his ultimate. But if you had 51% of your life, you'd only be consuming 1% of your life and dealing that with his ultimate. And then, you know, obviously his talent and all sorts of stuff like that isn't going to scale very well if you're only consuming 1% of your life. So overall, the aim of the game with Blade is as follows. You want to get as much life on him as possible, get him hit as much as possible, and have his life total change up and down as much as possible. But in order for Blade to work well and to work effectively, he needed to be paired with a fantastic healer. healer. Now, there's only 3 healers in the game. There is Luocha, Natasha, and Bailu, and all of them are reasonable picks with Blade, but you're absolutely gonna have to want to pair him with a healer. So you're gonna need to have at least one more healer on your account. So the characters, all of them here have merit with Blade, but remember, he's a character which constantly damages himself, and he wants to be at 100% life when he uses his ultimate. So the characters who are going to be favored with Blade the most are characters that can keep him topped up constantly. Now, he doesn't use that many skill points, fortunately, because he uses life as one of his resources instead of skill points. So you're gonna have plenty of skill points to heal him. So all these healers are viable for that reason. Bailu can use her skill on Blade, and she also has stuff in her kit which increases max HP, which is a big deal. That's pretty good. Okay, not too bad there. She also has a lot in her kit to heal Blade when he takes damage, like the invigoration. Natasha, though, has a skill which heals Blade, which is great. It also applies a heal over time, which is good. You know, maintaining a heal over time on Blade, every time he uses his ability, bam, he's gonna heal straight back. Not too bad. Luocha, man, oh man, Luocha was the pick and the talk of the town in closed beta 2 with Blade. And the reason for that is that Luocha has a skill which activates when an ally goes to 50% HP. Now, Blade, his ultimate sets his life to 50% HP, and it just immediately triggers, which is going to be very good for Blade. The other thing that Luocha has is a field which heals everybody when you deal damage. So while the field is up, any ally who attacks, they deal damage, they get healed. And Blade, he's going to consume life to attack, and then he's going to instantly heal that life back while the Luocha field is up, essentially giving you a no life cost, which is great. So Blade and Luocha were thought of as kind of like this buddy, this pair, this ultimate combo, and it was definitely very, very powerful in closed beta 2. And that is Blade. Okay, so what kind of teams would you use with Blade? Well, because he actually doesn't have that powerful attack scaling, because most of his scaling seem to be off life, you're gonna have to be pretty finicky on what kind of characters you pair with him in terms of supports. I personally would pair Nihility units with him first and foremost as a testing thing. So I'd probably pair, either Silver Wolf, I would pair Pella, or other Nihility units with him, or you can go ahead and just YOLO it and pair Tingyun with him, or Bronya with him if you want. But I definitely think Nihility are probably going to be able to bring out more of his potential, at least based on what we understand so far. So maybe Silver Wolf would be a reasonable option if she has enough debuffing capabilities. The next thing you're going to obviously want is a really strong healer, so I'd probably pick Luocha myself, and then maybe another Nihility unit to really take advantage of that damage stacking. So that's probably what I would go with here. Absolutely no shields though. Those shields would be my only condition. Alright, now that we understand how they might work and some of the strengths behind them, I wanted to quickly touch on their weaknesses and then whether or not they might be right for your account moving forward and into the future compared to what's coming down the pipe. Alright, so Blade's big weakness is that he is a character that needs to be hit. And if you are in a scenario where he's not hit and the devs tune him around being hit, he's going to end up quite similar to Clara. If his damage is on the underwhelming side, but overwhelming when he is hit, you're going to have to construct teams around him and he's going to need a pretty specific setup, just like Clara. And that may or may not be for you. But my inkling is they're probably going to tune him incredibly busted just with his normal rotation, and he's only going to get even more busted when he does get hit. So that's the way I would probably see Blade. Kafka is another character who is incredibly powerful and has a lot of things going for her as we've discussed, but she is a character that is subject to damage over time. And damage over time needs to land, and to land you need effect hit rating. In the endgame, many enemies have upwards of 50% effect hit resistance. Yep, that's right, and the way that works is that it cuts your chance to hit with any dot in half. And the only way to counteract that is with effect hit rating. And you can only get that on gear. And if they tune Kafka and they tune the endgame in such a way where you need a ton of effect hit rating, that can definitely hurt her DPS potential in the long run. So that definitely could be a bit of a weakness for Kafka as well as her teams. Now, I just want to say, I think that these guys will probably stand at the top of their class for their respective elements when they release. I think that Blade will be the best wind DPS, and I think that Kafka will likely be the best lightning DPS when she releases. For how long, no one can say, but I definitely do think they will stand top of their class. And they also do both have unique gimmicks, which I believe have big scaling potential in the future. There will absolutely be characters which are going to hit the entire team or something like that, which will scale Blade, and there will be characters which grant additional life as well as healing, and there's certainly going to be characters which apply new dots and are focused on breaking in the future for Kafka. So these guys both have future potential, they are both unique enough, which they definitely have their own niche, and they aren't just deal big lightning damage in a can here. So I definitely think they are pretty good, and if you were considering either of them for their theme or for the way they look or the way they play, I actually think they are both safe bets in terms of their future, just in their niche. Alright, so those guys are pretty good. So the question then becomes, ooh, should you save for them or should you pull for another unit? Well, no one's going to be able to tell you that because you need to understand how your account's looking yourself. But what I can tell you guys is how I would look at it from a free-to-play player's perspective here when it comes to pulling and saving for 1.2 and 1.1. So if I was a free-to-play character and I, for example, had Sele and like Bronya on my account, let's use this as an example. I think this is a pretty common example. And I didn't have any other event banner 5 stars. If I wanted to go ahead and clear the Memory of Chaos, the end game consistently and get competitive teams and get 30 stars, the thing I would want to pull more than anything is a second healer. If I did not have Bailu and I did not have Japad, I would want a second healer more than anything. I would be desperate for it because right up until now, I haven't seen any good clears with 3 stars in Memory of Chaos, 30 out of 30 without 2 healers yet. And I consider Japad a healer for the record. So I would want to get my hands on that second healer. So if you don't have Japad, if you don't have Bailu, I personally would save for Luocha, I would pull for Luocha, and I would use Luocha. Now, if you're someone who has one of those two already, and you want to fly by the seat of your pants, even if you don't have him, and wait for a 4-star healer, you don't care about Memory of Chaos, screw that, don't want the extra Stellar Jades, you can absolutely just say, I'm gonna go with Blade and Kafka anyway. But you also do have to consider Silver Wolf. So Silver Wolf is a support who is coming. He definitely looks like she's a little bit on the fence in terms of her power level, but we don't know how she's exactly going to play out. But you also do have her to consider. She is a Nihility unit, which aren't very popular right now, but I think that might be about to change. So I do think that she is a consideration as well, but I personally would actually rank having a strong 5-star DPS or having Silver Wolf. So I actually think that Kafka and Blade definitely rank, at least for me, above her in terms of priority list here. Having one of these two is definitely going to be strong, and if you already had Sele, it would give you 2 insane DPS here, which are going to be on your account. Let's say you had Kafka, and you got one side for Sele and one side for Kafka. That would be incredibly powerful. Now, the only thing which you might want to consider is if you did pull Jing, like you got him randomly from like pulling on the Teen Unit banner, then you may not want to get another Lightning unit with Kafka. That is just kind of the way it is, especially if you leveled him up. But you can obviously just ignore that advice and go for it as well. Remember, the ultimate goal is to have 2 healers, some good supports, and a DPS of each element who is incredibly powerful. But if you're looking to kind of boost up your account, those are some tips from me, the old Grimro, on the way I would handle it. Alright, so that's going to lead us to the end of the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want more Kafka, you want more Blade, you want 1.1 coverage, definitely subscribe to the channel. And if you like this video specifically, definitely give it a thumbs up. It really helped me out. Until next time, hope you guys enjoyed. Cheers.